A young lady attempted suicide. She gets put into a hospital, right? She is messed up. She ran her car into a building. She's messed up.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. She's in the hospital, has a cath. There's another guy that came from the Wayne County Juvie Detention Center that's not supposed to be out. That's a predator.
Yeah.
Goes to see the girl that he gave STDs to in the hospital.
What?
And he ends up raping my client.
Welcome to another episode of Cases Gone Wild, brought to you by Marko Law and me, Jon Marko. We have a great show for you today. I'm your host, Jon Marko. I've been an attorney for almost 2 decades, and we bring you the craziest, wildest, most insane cases that you just can't believe. You can't make this stuff up, and we have a special show for you today. Very special guest, extraordinary attorney, extraordinary friend, Todd Flood is here, who I'm about to introduce. If you like the show, please leave us a review, share with your friends, and remember, we got cameras here, guys. You can watch us on YouTube and see Todd Flood's beautiful face as we talk about the craziest cases gone wild. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Todd. I met Todd, about 2010 on a case that we had against each other, actually, that we're going to talk a little bit about today. But I want to introduce you to Todd. Todd is a graduate of Allen Park High School right here in Detroit metropolitan area, went to Lake Superior for college, graduated from University of Toledo, and then worked in the prosecutor's office, right, Todd?
I did.
Quite some time, which is a great way to try cases. Get in the courtroom, get in the trenches.
The best. It's the best way, I think.
And I understand you trained under like a great trial lawyer who tried a lot of cases. Who was that, Todd?
Augustus Hutting, Augie. Augie, may he rest in peace. Augie, I think, for a long period of time in the state of Michigan, probably had the most homicide trials on the prosecution side than anybody in the state. He was a gentleman. He was amazing, great attorney, and I got to carry his briefcase for 3 years before I tried my first jury trial.
Dude, you learn more sometimes carrying a briefcase for great attorneys than you could ever learn otherwise. I have carried briefcases in my day, and I learned a hell of a lot doing it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. No, seriously, that's everything. I just wrote an article about mentors and having mentors.
Yeah.
And how important it is to throw back. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and not to lose our soul in this profession.
Yeah.
Because we got to give, right? So Augie and everybody at the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, we had so much institutional knowledge. Kim Worthy, all of them. Lisa Lindsay, my dearest friend right now. So many great trial lawyers and friends. And I can remember getting lunch for Augie. Well, he's in the midst of a trial, going up onto the 9th floor, which was our library, but that was the lunchroom too.
Yeah.
Everybody's sitting at the round table, right, with their sack lunches or soups, and whatever issue you had, whatever problem you had 20 of the greatest trial lawyers in the state of Michigan.
It is the best. When I worked, so, my mentor, and I've talked a lot on this show, is Jeffrey Feiger,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
I've learned more in my years working for him and I carried his bag all around the country.
Right.
And he had such great people when I was working there. If I had a legal problem, I would literally walk down the hallways of the Feiger law firm. And if I would go from office to office, usually by the time I made it halfway down the hall, my problem was solved. Because you have great people.
Right.
Because law is tough, and you can have different perspective, different views on how to tackle a problem. And it's so amazing when you're with other people. I just tried a case in Grand Rapids with a young man by the name of Justin Maxim, great guy, but he doesn't have other plaintiffs' attorneys around him. And I said, I don't know how you do it, because the way that we solve problems and are the best lawyers is collaborating with other people in that group mentality.
Right.
And you bring out the best. So,
yeah, no, you what a great story, though, with you and Feiger. And I got to believe there are some cases where he said, okay, John, you're going to take this witness and you had to be freaking out.
Oh, yeah.
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 But-
and sometimes it'd tell me that even when I wasn't going to take the
Yeah,
win.
yeah. But it's such a learning experience. And for me, that was everything. You always learn by doing, learn by
That's
failing.
right. How many trials have you been involved with?
Oh, gosh. Over 300.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
I mean, when you're in the prosecutor's office back in the day in Wayne County, so a person calls in sick, they have a jury trial on that day. You just finished a trial, then you're available. You would get that person's file, and the jury would be in the box, right?
Yeah.
So you're reading the file on the way down sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's just rapid fire, right? So, but you had to be prepared to try a case. And, Unger's rule, you have to have at least 25 jury trials to know the rules of evidence.
Absolutely.
Right. So you got to have, and who knows the rules usually wins.
Exactly.
So,
and a lot of these people, a lot of young attorneys who are inexperienced do not understand the rules of evidence. And I teach you can take a million evidence classes in law school, but
right.
we just had some recent trials at my firm, and I'm trying to drill in to some of my associates about the importance of understanding and then applying the rules of evidence, because a lot of times you have about 2 seconds in front of that judge to make your argument on the rule, right?
Right. You got to know the foundation.
Yeah.
So every year I have a summer class that comes into flood law, and we get them from all over the place. Wayne, but this year we got a young man that got a full ride to Alabama, another guy from Georgia, Florida. We bring them in all from
That's
all
a great
over.
idea.
Yeah, and so it's really exciting, brings a lot of energy. But so we meet in the conference room every Monday, 8:00 in the morning, and I'll throw something at one of the interns or one of the law clerks, and I'll say, here's the eraser. This was the object that killed Johnny at the scene. Introduce it into evidence right now. I'll be the officer in the charge on the stand, okay? I'm the witness. Over here, Josie's the judge. You introduce it. So I make practical things all the time, knowing those rules. And, obviously the civil rules of procedure, criminal rules of procedure, all of those things, knowing those rules. If you know 46 pages in one book and 28 in the other book, those are the rules of procedure. You win, right?
You win.
Yeah.
That's great. So so just so people know, you started your law firm, Flood Law, in 2002.
I did.
You used to have that great building in Royal Oak on Main Street. I remember when I first met you.
Right.
Flood Law right on Main Street in downtown Royal Oak. And now you're my neighbor downtown Detroit, which is awesome. Great place to be.
Right.
With your firm. And you do all kinds of stuff now. You do criminal defense still?
Still, our office has a criminal division and a civil division. We do major league wrongful death cases, catastrophe cases. I was the lead counsel with two other great attorneys on the Eastern Michigan University case where the 43 women were assaulted.
Yeah.
So we have a civil and we have a criminal. Just finished an explosion case. Just did a trial out in Adrian, Michigan on a declaration of death case so I can file my lawsuit on the wrongful death case.
So what was that about? So I understand you do a lot of complex stuff like me. So why did you have to do a declaration of death case?
I hear you. I've never heard of it before. But here's the thing. If someone in a catastrophe is missing for 5 years, the statute says it has to be for a certain period of time before the person could be declared dead. Or if it's obvious, you make a petition. The plane goes down, you can't find the body. So
like somebody's gone.
Missing, right?
Everybody thinks they're dead, but they haven't found the body and they haven't been declared dead?
Correct. So if you're going to do it before the 5-year period, right?
You have to wait 5 years?
Right.
So if I go missing today,
right,
God forbid, they won't declare me dead officially for 5 years unless you go do something special?
Right. You got to go into the probate court. I don't go into probate courts. I don't even know what a probate court is, right? So I give that stuff to Darren Finling and, Bodman, right? So I had to have a trial and show by clear and convincing evidence that Dee Warner, which is a tragic case, her husband killed her, but no body's ever been found.
No way.
Yeah. So I did this trial.
Is it a jury or a judge?
Bench
it's
trial.
In probate court.
It's in probate court. You can have a jury trial under certain circumstances, but this was a bench trial.
And you have to prove that the person's dead.
Dead.
So the whole case is
And no body.
somebody's dead.
Right.
And who defends the case?
So in this case, there was an objection filed by the husband.
Who said she's not dead?
Right, at that time.
Oh, wow.
And then you had other people, because there's children involved, right? And those children are represented, right? So there were 6 attorneys in this courtroom. And I represented the daughter of one of the victim, of D. So in this particular situation, it was, all these attorneys all over the place in this courtroom, several objections over here, several objections over there. But I worked with law enforcement. And because law enforcement, to the extent they just charged Dale Warner, the husband, and got it bound over on murder, right?
Had he been convicted yet or no?
No, just got bound over to be tried.
So he was being charged with murder.
He hadn't been charged until after my case.
Okay.
So I'm working with Michigan State Police. Here I have on the stand one of the best detectives ever. It was like I was back home again at the prosecutor's office. I had Secret Service, the things they can do to show whether or not you're alive, face recognition, travel, passports, you name it.
Yeah.
Phones. It's unbelievable, the technology we have today. And so I put every witness I possibly could on the stand, her therapist, her doctors, her, the people that prescribe her medications, that she wasn't getting her prescriptions.
She just went missing.
Well, she was killed.
Yeah.
She was murdered.
Did they ever find the body?
Haven't found the body.
Where do you think it is?
In a field. It's on a farm, somewhere.
So you proved, the whole case was proving this person was dead.
Yes. So before I can sue, right, for my wrongful death case, I first had to have a death, right?
Yeah.
So that was done in probate court. Now I have a death.
Because you can't sue if somebody's not dead, right?
Right. Just missing, you can't sue.
That's wild. I've never heard of this before.
Me either. I had to do it.
You learn something new every day.
I love evolving, man.
Yeah.
I do.
Our first case, I don't know if you remember, but it was circa 2010.
I do.
It was a tragic case up in
sad.
Midland, Michigan.
Right.
And my client's name was Trent Ripper. And you had represented a kind of a family. It was the Gibbs family. I don't know if you remember this.
Dana, and yeah. So I represented them in the criminal case. We won that. And then your firm sued. This is a tragic case where it was on a young boy was put into the river while he was asleep in his car. Tippecanoe River.
Yeah.
And he was pushed in, died, drowned.
Well, we don't know if he was pushed in.
We don't know if he was pushed in. Yeah, we don't know. I think I know. I think I know.
People thought he was pushed in. So just so
whatever the case
our
may
viewers
be.
know, because we were on opposite sides. This is how we kind of met each other, and we ended up having to go up to Midland and try a case, and we were on the same side. But just so the viewers understand, this was a crazy case. There was a big party up near Midland, Michigan, at your client's house.
Right.
The
high school graduation party.
High school kegger. They had a beautiful house. They were pretty wealthy. And their house sloped down to this river, the Tippecanoe River, which is a pretty.
There was a little road, right, and the kids partied on the opposite side of the road next to the river. Yeah,
and the river was like a big slope. It was like a grassy knoll, Kennedy, the grassy knoll.
Mm-hmm.
And these kids partied, and then a lot of the kids, like my client Trent, were too intoxicated to drive home from the party. So some of the kids slept on the premises,
right?
And Trent slept in his car, which was an old Honda Civic, I believe,
right?
Or Prelude, Honda Prelude.
It was a stick shift, wasn't
it? Stick shift, yeah. And in the middle of the night, the car went into the river,
right?
And nobody knew what happened. We could talk about this case for an hour, but how we ended up having the same kind of goal, at least in one part, because you were defending the family. We were suing the family on behalf of Trent and his mom.
Right.
Was the insurance company
was
horrible. They said
terrible
to your client, we're going to yank all the insurance coverage even though this young boy died on your property and you're on your own. And so we had to go up to Midland and try a case against the insurance company. And it was the most awkward alignment because we represent this mother and this young, tragic boy who had passed away. And we're on the same team for this case.
I had to win this case. I had to win this case.
And we wanted you to win.
Yeah, and it was like the first time I've ever heard of a jury trial. It was a jury trial for a civil deck action.
Yes.
And I had to, because if we didn't win, then my client would be stuck potentially declaring bankruptcy.
Oh, yeah.
For the lawsuit.
And so just so our listeners who don't understand this deck action stuff or maybe don't have experience in the law, the insurance company, so my client, the deceased, the Trent, sued your client for the party and everything that it's too much to get into here, but basically his death.
His death. It's a wrongful death case.
Wrongful death. And the insurance company
was not going to
cover. Your clients sued your own insured, your clients, and said, we want the court to say that we don't have to pay for this.
Right.
Which would have completely screwed your client. They would have declared bankruptcy. And they would have also screwed the family of my client, who would have a very difficult time seeking damages for this case. So we had to go before a jury, and the jury, and we're together against the insurance company. What an awkward situation. The mother, a wonderful woman by the name of Annette Ripper.
I remember Annette.
Wonderful, God-fearing, beautiful lady, tragic, has to be on the same side as the person who's suing. And then we had to go to trial together, essentially, against the insurance company.
Right.
And we won. I don't know if you did a great job.
Well, I can only remember this. And I don't know if you remember, but the insurance company had a team of like 4 lawyers I had to deal with. And I couldn't imagine all the law clerks and law students. Every time I called or wanted something, I had like 5 motions thrown my way.
Oh, yeah.
It was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous.
The money they spent on this case coming. I was like every day trying to, answer a motion or go do something in the case. And I was just like blown away. They were working so hard to prevent, paying for something that they should have paid for.
That they should have paid for.
And they ultimately
away.
did.
They ultimately did.
Yeah.
But they should have. They made us go to a trial. That we did all these depositions. The family had to pay you, I'm sure, all kinds of money. What a horrible situation. And shame on that insurance company. But I don't know if you remember.
You did a great job for your client, my man.
Thank you. So did you.
Well, it was a team effort, but I'll never forget that. And I just don't, I don't know, maybe but I've never seen a jury trial for a deck action.
I haven't either. Normally what happens in these cases is a judge says, there's either insurance or there's not insurance.
Right.
And you don't have to go through a trial. The judge looks at all the evidence, says there's either insurance or not insurance. We had to take a jury. And I don't know if you remember, one of the jurors said, because they put on this crackpot expert who said, he died and he made up some stuff about, the boy. And one of the jurors sent a note that said to the judge, do we have to believe anything that this insurance company expert is saying? We knew that was a good sign.
That's a good sign.
We knew that
was a good sign. I think we tag teamed the cross-examination of him.
Yes, yeah. So let's talk about some of your other cases gone wild. So you were involved, which I also had some involvement in, the Flint water case. So tell our listeners about it. If you're in Michigan, you probably know. Actually, if you're anywhere, you probably know about this horrible tragedy in Flint where the water was literally poisoned with lead as a result of some decisions that were made. So tell our listeners your role in this and what happened.
So I was appointed as the special counsel for the state of Michigan for the prosecution investigation of the Flint water crisis. And let me just get out from Jump Street. 2 of the greatest people in the world, I think, and a mentor of mine, Kim Worthy, one of the best, and Fadwa Hamoud, love her. She's a great lady, one of the best. Prior to them, I was in charge of investigating. First time in our country, in our history, probable cause I established to charge in court, open court, and had the hearing, just establish this, the director of Health and Human Services and the chief doctor for the state of Michigan. I proved to show that a crime was committed, and they committed it as it relates to involuntary homicide.
This was a criminal case that you were.
Yep.
So what is a special prosecutor? So because you weren't employed by the state. Normally prosecutors are paid for and they work for the state or the city or whatever.
Right. So here there was a conflict. There was a wall that was put up because the criminal division and the civil division, they're one of the same offices. So Bill Schuette, who was then the AG, went outside, and it happens all the time. We just saw for the pharmaceutical companies that a special AG was assigned. So here they hired me as a special assistant. So I worked for the state of Michigan. I was contracted by the state of Michigan.
So you had your own law firm, but you were hired by the state and imbued with like the powers of a prosecutor, essentially?
Right.
Okay.
And we brought in an investigative arm along with prosecutors, right? And all of us had prosecutorial experience or law enforcement experience.
This is a big case.
Huge case.
Complex case, lots of stuff.
Yeah. So, I was in high school invited back to chemistry. With this case, I learned the chemistry. And, nowhere have I ever seen, we had over 100 deaths from Legionella. And
oh, my God.
So when you think about this case, in Flint, there's a lot of vacant properties, and what was happening because the pipes were being stripped, there was these little tiny plumes of Legionella, and the Legionella would grow because what would happen on this side of the pipe over here down the street was chlorine was being thrown in, and it would get absorbed into the raw material, that raw material being leaves or whatever the case may be. That would become what we call TTHMs, trihalomethanes. All that is food. TTHM is food for Legionella. I call it steroids. So the steroid little tiny plumes would blow up to these big plumes. And then you go down the street, this silent, deadly killer would be drawn into the hospital, drawn into your home. Right. And
I've worked on these Legionella cases. And so our listeners know the Legionella is a horrible disease. And I think it was named after there was a convention in Philadelphia,
VFW, I think.
Yeah. Where all these people drank the water, or it came through the vents.
The vents, but it's airborne, a lot of it. Right. So you inhale it, it gets down to the deeper parts of your lung, and that little amoeba will grow into your lung and then explode.
Is it like a bacteria?
It is a bacteria.
And it explodes in your lungs?
Well, ultimately, it'll get down into a cell, down into the lower parts, right? Grows, and then that cell blows up. Horrible.
People die. A lot of people died in Flint.
Well, if you had comorbidities, right? So if you had diabetes, high blood pressure, whatever the case may be. So we went and got all the death certificates for 6 years, right? And I could show.
This I'm sorry to interrupt you, Todd, but this Legionella went into the water that was coming out of the hospital, wasn't it?
No.
Something like that? No.
So the Legionella. So there's this film around a pipe. Just imagine a coating, right, around the pipe.
And the city
water pipes.
Okay.
Right? And so you have really active water, right, that's being put in that should never have been put in, right? And it was stripping
the coating
because they didn't, at the water treatment plant, add this chemical called orthophosphate. Orthophosphate is this protector. It's a protector of the pipes, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't have that. They didn't add it in.
So it was stripping the stuff out of the city water pipes?
Right. And so if you can imagine a circular, right, pipe, and this coating falling down, there was bacteria between the coating and the copper pipe. Bacteria between the coating and the copper pipe, and the lead pipes, right? So that coating being stripped away, that bacteria fell down into the water. So what do? You have a pool, you add chlorine. I see why. Chlorine kills bacteria. But what happened was that chlorine gets absorbed into other raw material, leaves, dirt, all the things that were falling down. And then that becomes a new organic material called trihalomethanes, TTHMs. That new organic material keeps floating down, bacteria falling, right?
Yeah.
That is food. So for the bacteria. So that bacteria, Legionella, would, instead of being one little tiny plume, it grew. It was
And
like
people were drinking it.
Well, what would happen, that would you would drink that, but that's not going to cause the problem. But when you flush your toilet, or you have a steam bath, or you have a shower, the airborne, right, water molecules gets into your lungs, right? Or you ever have water and you drink it and it goes down the wrong pipe? And you cough, right? You cough, it becomes airborne, then comes back in, right, to your lung. So when that happens, that bacteria will go down into your lungs, and then from there gets into the cell and grows. And it's a
bad news.
Bad news. And so if you looked at all the death certificates, nowhere, I can't find anywhere in the United States, ever, right? Over 100 people dying in an area from Legionella.
That's unheard of.
And it's made an indelible imprint on my mind, in my heart. I have such great friends up there. I lived there basically for 3 years. That's the case. We all have cases. I have the secret. I have so many cases that I will never forget. But this is a case that I still tear up because I lived on Martin Luther King Boulevard up there. I walked that street. I met those people, and they became friends.
That's horrible. So what did you do as a special prosecutor? Did you prosecute people who were partially or wholly responsible for this this Legionella?
Yeah, so there was two parts to it. There was the lead that was causing lead poisoning because the lead was being stripped. They didn't have that part. And then we also had the Legionella, the death cases. So our team put together an investigation, and we had investigative subpoenas. That's, where you take and get people under oath. And then we charged. We had several pleas, and we were just kind of working our way up. We were doing kind of like a white-collar prosecution, and we were working ourselves up to get cooperators.
People who are going to cooperate, flip.
Right. And, so that case evolved, and, we were taken off the case when there was a new administration, and we never got to see it through. So to this day, it's unfortunate. Flint, if I was, president, there would be the infrastructure put into Flint. There would be a lot of love given to Flint.
Yeah.
Because Flint is such a beautiful place that needs the shot in the arm. We need to bring Flint back. We need to make sure that those people have every luxury, right, that Birmingham does. That, to me anyway.
I was up there. I stayed up in Flint for like 5 weeks during one of my, I had a landmark civil rights trial up there.
I know it. It was amazing.
Yeah. And I got to know the people in the city pretty well. I was in the Genesee County Circuit Court all the time. And even this was the summer of 2019. So when was the water crisis?
16 is when, I got into the picture. So the water crisis 14, 15, right?
So we were 4 years later, Todd, and you still could not drink out of the water fountains at the courthouse. I remember, because normally, look, you try to bring water to court, whatever, but like I'm on a break, I would run out and use the water fountain and then get back in there, between witnesses or something.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that. They literally had, this was 2019 summer, they had trash bags over the water fountains in the public courthouse that said, "Do not drink this water.
That's right.
It's poison."
Right.
And I mean, it's just mind-boggling that something like this could happen in today's day and age, and that it's devastating in all the people's lives who were affected. Man.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. That's the sad part. That's what, I have a passion like you. You are an amazing. I got so many questions for you. I could sit here and ask you questions all day long, but you have a passion for what you do. You have a passion for, making a correction in a person's life. You change trajectories. You're not like curing acne. You're actually changing the trajectory of a person's life, and that's what you do, and you do it insanely well. But when something hits you, visceral, inside, and you feel it.
Yeah, you
right?
feel it.
And it takes a toll on you, right?
It does.
So
well, you carry a burden too for your clients, and that's part of our job, right?
Right,
It's like
right.
taking that burden, taking that pain, and kind of carrying a little bit ourselves in a way.
That's right. So when it's time to play, man, you better play.
That's right.
Yeah.
But that's the difference between great lawyers and not so great lawyers is you care.
You care.
That's what I tell people. What do you look for when you're hiring a lawyer? More than anything, it's not the school you went to. It's do you care? That's my number one criteria when I'm hiring people. Do you care? If you don't care, I don't want you affiliated with me, my firm, or my clients. It's as simple as that. And I tell people, if I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, I don't know what I would do. If I couldn't work anymore, man, it would be a sad day for me.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'd do.
We're not losing you, man. we got you, baby.
Well,
so no, we're not
thank you,
losing
man.
you.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, no, I'm 1,000% behind that.
So tell me about, I understand I've been following one of your other cases. This is like a crazy case because you do a lot of civil rights work, which is hard work, hard, long, tough, and not always the most profitable part of our practices.
No.
Because they're so darn hard. But civil rights, I understand that you had a horrible case involving a man with Parkinson's who was basically like killed in his bed. Can you tell us about this case gone wild?
Yeah, this is on video. It's on film. It's we're about to pull the trigger. We've hired all our experts. We've in the civil world, right? I first load up, unless it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I first load up with the best experts around. So
you
I
have to,
yeah.
or your case can get kicked out of court, and it costs a lot of money.
Oh my God, the money I throw up in front. But so many attorneys that don't do that, right?
Exactly.
So I've worked on this case hard. This young man, David, I shouldn't say young. He was actually in his 50s. He had a closed head injury.
Brain injury
From an earlier time in his life. And he was diagnosed and had Parkinson's. And he was
horrible disease.
Horrible.
So Parkinson's is where you shake. My grandma had it.
My mom had it.
Yeah, horrible
My mom
disease.
just passed away at 94.
Horrible.
Yeah, horrible. So David had Parkinson's. He died while he was trapped in his bed in a jail. And he was dead for 6 hours.
Which jail was this?
This was out in Berrien County Jail. And so this tragic scene starts from he was in adult foster care. And,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, and he kept falling. And when he was falling,
so he had a brain injury and Parkinson's. Man,
yeah,
that's a tough.
I mean,
combo.
it's a tough life. It's a tough life, right? And so the person that had him in foster care had too many people, and his cohorts. I don't know if you've ever been in an adult or adult foster care home.
Some of them are horrible, man. I would.
Right. I have a client that his brother just went into one. I go there every month to bring him a 6-pack of Coca-Cola. And it's a classic, but I love this place. It's just clean and beautiful. But the one where David was at, there was too many people. And
they get paid per person.
Per
usually.
person.
So they're
exactly.
stacking them in
they're
there.
stacking because that's their income,
Yeah.
right? And
all
so,
about the money, man.
all about the cash. And so this was just a horrible, horrible scene. So what happens is the other adults who are challenged would call the ambulance because poor David couldn't get up, right? And couldn't communicate well because of his closed head injury.
Yeah.
So the mother in charge of that foster care home got tired of it, made up bogus charges against David that he assaulted her, which the guy couldn't hold a butter knife, let alone assault somebody, right? So he ends up going to jail, not knowing what's going on, gets in a public appointed attorney.
Horrible.
Next thing you know, he's in jail for a year. This guy.
A year?
Yep.
So he got in the system. And just so our viewers, so where is Berrien County exactly?
It's over on the west side of the state. It's over on the, by just north or by Ludington on that side, of the state.
So I
Grand
do a
Rapids
lot of
area.
jail cases.
Yeah.
And people do not understand how bad a lot of these jails are. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Especially if you have a mental health condition.
Right.
Because there's no real medical good medical care in these jails.
Well, they're
for
contracted
people.
out and they're terrible.
They're terrible.
Right. A lot of the contracts. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a couple that I've come into that are great, but those are few and far between.
Yeah, I haven't seen those yet.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, I've been to a lot of jails.
Yeah. It's horrible. Some of these
Yeah.
jails, I mean, the amount of people that die in jail is mind-boggling.
It is to me. I have someone doing a study on this right now to find out, because I don't have the time. So I've have other people that are working on, law students working on the jailhouse deaths.
Well, tell them to call me, because I got dozens of case files on all these jails all over the place, and it's sad because we don't expect jail to be like an idyllic retreat, a vacation at the Holiday Inn or something, but you got to have a basic level of meeting people's basic human needs: food, shelter, and some basic medical care.
So, diabetes is a big one in the jails, and you see a lot of people that will ultimately die of some other ailment, like, heart attack or whatever the case may be. But I'm curious about the underlying disease that some of these inmates have that cause ultimately
all
the
these
heart to
other
stop.
things.
Yeah.
Dude, we just had, not to sidetrack for our viewers,
Yeah.
but I just worked on a case with, I was involved with Todd Weglar's over at Fiver's office.
Love Todd.
Who does a lot of these. It was a young woman was having seizures, like big seizures where it's like, like their tongues,
Sure.
And the nurse, whose job is to provide safety and medical care, was laughing at her, saying, "Dance, dance." And the young woman who had her whole life ahead of her, who had a tough life, was in the prison, but ended up dying of a seizure.
Oh my
which
gosh.
should never happen. I mean, hitting her head against the floor. And they were laughing at her, saying, "Dance, dance. You
Bro,
do that
that's,
dance."
That's too heavy, man. But
it's medieval,
it happens.
man. It's
it
medieval.
happens more than people want to know.
Exactly.
And I get it that obviously there's jails and prisons aren't supposed to be country clubs. However, to your point, just the fundamental care for another human being.
Yeah.
I mean, right from right, wrong from wrong. You know the difference, right? And laughing. Same thing in my case.
It's
They
horrible.
laughed at David as they walked by. I watched it on
So
video.
David was in this Berrien County jail.
He gets trapped and can't move because of his Parkinson's, and you see him as he's trapped in between a rail and his bed, and ultimately asphyxiates. From
It strangles him to death.
well, yeah, because of the compression, right? The lack of oxygen,
So he literally got his body stuck in the bed rail thing.
and didn't have the strength to get out of that situation.
How long was he stuck in this bed rail?
6 hours. 6 hours.
How does
And you're
you
supposed
check it?
to check on them every 30 minutes, but they just walk by.
They never do.
They did.
Or they lie. They'll walk by and then they'll put on the log sheets that they did.
Right.
I have tons of cases like that. That's horrible.
Right.
Well, if look, if you're in jail, it's bad, right? In terms of care, especially some of the jails. If you're in jail and you have mental health or medical issues,
yeah.
you're in big trouble.
Right.
You are in big trouble.
Right.
And a lot of these jails, I represent a lot of jailers. I represent a lot of prison workers, and a lot of them are good, hardworking people. Not all, but most are. And one of the problems is it's complete understaffing too. They have bad training. They have bad hiring practices, in my opinion. I've sued the Department of Corrections. I can't tell you how many times. Right now, I don't know if you saw in the news, the prison union who represents these prison workers are telling the governor, we need to mobilize the National Guard because it's unsafe. We don't have enough staff.
Right.
So, look, obviously somebody dropped the ball there. It's not right. The jail should be responsible. But they need, from a institutional standpoint, in my opinion, more people, better people. They need to get a hold of this problem. The administrations of a lot of these jails and the Michigan Department of Corrections, in my opinion, is abysmal. And they need to do something because it's getting worse. I don't know about you. I am getting way more
I am.
jail death, prison death people getting killed, people getting maimed, people getting hurt than I've ever seen in my career.
Yeah, no, I'm inundated with the calls and the cases. Here, it's not a secret to running a law firm, right? You got to get a file. Once you get a file, you got to get it in suit.
Right. You got to.
You can't do anything until you file. Right. We're getting so much on the intake side of cases that I have to bring in more lawyers.
Yeah,
and that's not a bad problem. That's a good problem for a law firm.
But it's just to screen the cases.
Just to screen and bring in cases. But imagine that many phone calls.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And civil rights violations for it's rampant. But it's a bigger problem we could sit here and attempt to solve, but it's really should be on the front end. What cases the prosecutor and judges are sentencing to prison.
Yeah.
It should be on the front end. And then over here on the back end, 1,000%, we don't have enough people, qualified people. We have a lot of people that care. I've met a lot of wardens, and the wardens are great. I have one that's a friend. I go up. I have an innocent projects case going on, and Derek Oliver. Derek Oliver's an innocent guy, 1,000% convicted. And I've met the warden up in Port Huron. Great guy, clean place. But unfortunately, what's the number one complaint? Understaffed and undertrained.
Yeah,
and that's. So we need to fix that
it's
problem.
Horrible. And some of these guys have to work like triple shifts because they don't have anybody else. How do you do that? I couldn't. If
I don't know.
If as your lawyer, do you want me not getting any sleep for 3 days?
Right.
And then going to try your case? Like, I'm not going to be that good at it.
Right. Right.
But I agree. And it's on the front end because people don't understand how these decisions can trickle down. I have a case right now. It's Juan Quintana. It was at a juvenile justice facility, in my opinion, a complete dump of a facility in Highland Park.
Oh, yeah.
That these facilities, it's Spectrum Juvenile Justice Services. They bill the state and make all kinds of money to house these juveniles. And
that's a story in and of itself.
Yeah.
How much money they make.
They make so much money.
Right.
And this kid was placed there, Juan, because he got into some probation trouble. He wasn't a bad kid, but he had, got caught with some weed, and his parents got into a fight with his parents, and the judge mandated him to a juvenile justice facility, which is like, why, that is not problem solving, in my opinion.
No.
For this judge. And it started with this judge who made a decision. Now he's dead, because they placed him instead of other more supportive things. It's like, let's throw him to a juvenile jail in the middle of Detroit where that's understaffed, undertrained. The people didn't supervise them. The people falsified logs according to the Michigan State. They lied about it. They didn't provide him help. They didn't provide necessary health care. Now he's dead. Now look, they're at fault at this jail.
Yeah.
But you know what?
On the front
end,
why
the judge.
Yeah, why was he sentenced to that? So when I was a prosecutor in front of Judge Crockett, one of the greatest judges around, Tim Kenny, when I was appointed to these or assigned to these courtrooms, and they dove deep into the person in front of him. Judge Crockett would never allow a in custody defendant to come into the courtroom without the deputy giving him a sport coat and a tie and to treat him like
way.
You
don't see that much anymore, do you?
No, but they dove deep into the human. It's they wanted to know, where it is, that this person comes from, what kind of stock, does he care? Does he have that ability to make it, right?
Yeah.
And then what do we got to do to give it to him so that he can? We're remedial oftentimes.
Yeah.
We don't, it's like medicine. We don't go to the doctor until we're sick, right?
Right.
Here, as opposed to how to prevent becoming familial.
Right.
Same thing oftentimes with courts. They don't, they only react as opposed to get in. And I think some of the best judges that I've seen have made defendants, poster boys for coming back. Think about all the great success stories in this world, right? Of humans coming back.
I came back, man. I could have been Juan. When I look at Juan, I always say that could have been me in a different
Sure.
trajectory or a different path. You know,
Sure.
I had trouble as a kid. I got kicked out of Catholic high school. I was a little troublemaker.
Right.
You know, what if you
Here
know,
walk I, man.
yeah. I mean, but it would have been one decision, one bad decision. Now, look, I made bad decisions, but it could have also been somebody else, like a judge or something, making a bad decision. I could have been Juan.
Yeah.
And when I look at that case, I could have been him, and maybe that's why I care so much about it,
Right.
because it shouldn't happen. He should have been given a second chance.
God bless you,
He
bro.
should have been. So, you know, it's horrible.
It's awesome. It's awesome you do what you do, really, and take on the cases you take on.
You
because
too.
But you're a champion. I watch you. I'm over here. I'm a string on the blimp compared to you, bro. I watch you, and you're doing these trials, and you're hitting it from all over the place. Grand Rapids, Flint, Detroit. I mean, you're Lansing. I think you just had one in Lansing. Not too long
I
ago.
love trying cases. I love it. You know, it's fun. I know you do too.
Yeah.
That's what we do, and we had great success. We just hit in Grand Rapids for $3.5 million. The day before I got done with trial in Macomb County in front of Honorable Richard Coretti, who's a great, tough judge.
Love Judge Coretti.
Love him too. Great, tough judge. We hit for 6.5. I made a goal this year. My New Year's resolution was I'm going to try as many cases as I can this year, and I'm going to try more cases than any other plaintiff's lawyer in Michigan. And one of the things was, man, Todd, somebody told me, great lawyer Mark Lanier, he said, we all only have so many trials in us, and we should be thankful. And so every time I go into a courtroom, I know this sounds maybe corny or stupid, I am thankful, and I say, I am so lucky to be able to walk into a courtroom and represent someone and do so well, and because not a lot of people have that opportunity, and it's a privilege and an honor.
Right.
And I love it. So, you know, and I know you do too, and that's why you're doing well.
It's a blessing. I think about, and I know it sounds corny too, but I thank my parents.
Yeah.
I think, you know, may all of them rest in peace. My brother, may he rest in peace.
Yeah.
I thank all of them for giving me the opportunity to sit in this courtroom and be the shepherd for, you know, the guy or the gal sitting next to me, and having that blessing. And I never take my life or take those opportunities for granted.
Absolutely not, man. And I just tried this case in Grand Rapids, where I grew up in Grand Rapids, so I was in Kent County Circuit Court, and my parents came and watched the trial, which was awesome, you know, that they were able to see, especially given that I was such a mess up, difficult kid. Like, thank God my children are nothing, not as difficult as me growing up. But my parents, you know, I got kicked out of high school. I was getting in fights. I was, you know, smoking weed before weed was even legal. I was doing all kind of just disruptive stuff, class clown.
Yeah.
And they put up with me, and my dad and my mom, they always said, just keep going to school. Just keep going to school.
Yeah.
Because they had worked their way out of poverty from growing up in Pittsburgh. I mean, coming from steel mill families.
Sure.
So I thank them, and I owe them so much. But it was nice to be able to come full circle, have them in the courtroom.
I have that experience.
And have the lawyers say, you know, your son is an amazing attorney. Have the judge say that. So anyways,
that's
enough
awesome,
about
man.
blowing smoke about me and all this bullshit. So let's talk about some more cases gone wild. I have, all right, we have, you know, I want to talk about one case real quick, and then I want to talk about a case that you told me about. Mental health issues are so often intertwined in our cases.
Yeah.
Right? But I had this guy I worked on this case where there was a guy at in a psych ward. So he was in supposed to be for people with mental health issues.
Right.
Who they had an open exhaust vent that he was able to get into. You know, like the vents that carry air, heat and air. Well, these vents this was a hospital, so, you know, it's like 6 or 8 stories. This vent goes all the way down. The dude crawled into the vent and fell down 4 stories and then got stuck in the vent. Nobody even knew he was in it, and he died inside a vent.
Oh my gosh.
At the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
And it started to smell.
Oh,
and then they're like,
God.
Where's Bob? And oh my God, this vent's open.
What hospital is this?
I can't talk about the hospital.
Oh, I got you.
It's a local hospital. psych
That is
unit.
crazy.
It is crazy.
So, a big story right now is going on with a doctor that is not seeing the patient in the psych ward, but signing the stamp, for the script that has him in custody past the 72 hours, sends it over to probate court. Probate court then signs off because it sees the doctor's prescription.
So they lock him in there?
And lock him in 14 days.
That's
right?
horrible.
Right. That case is coming. Is coming. And it's one of the bigger psych hospitals in our area, which doesn't have a lot of... Not a lot of hospitals have a lot of psych wards.
No, and look, what I learned in our profession is bad actors are everywhere.
Right.
Good actors are everywhere. And it's whether you're a lawyer, a doctor, a garbage man, a plumber, a psych hospital nurse.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No.
You are bad. You do bad things. It is going to cause these crazy things. And it happens all the time.
Thank God for stewards like you, man.
You too, brother. You too.
No. I'm telling you, that's what keeps the check and balance. That's what keeps the world going, right?
Yeah.
And
it's horrible.
Yeah.
Some of
in
this
a good
stuff.
way.
We have this case right now talking about psych wards. My client went into a psych ward, and I'll say the name. It's Trinity Health. It's St. John's of Livonia Hospital.
Yeah.
We have this case pending right now in Wayne County Circuit Court. She goes in. She's schizophrenic.
Yeah.
So she's a young woman. She's like 24 years old. She says, I'm hearing voices. They put her in a psych ward. Another patient rapes her, who's also in the psych ward. So we asked the hospital, do the right thing.
Yeah. I had that case.
Yeah.
I had that case. Yeah.
Dude, we get this. They won't give us the records. They say it's privilege. And so we go to the guy at jail and we say, look, dude, it's St. Mary's of Livonia,
St.
right?
Mary's.
Is that in Livonia? It's St. Mary's of Livonia.
Yeah.
It's a Trinity Health.
Right.
And we go to the guy because their lawyers are like, oh, we're not going to give you this stuff. I'm in the shower one morning. I'm like, dude, I got an idea. Let's just go talk to the guy.
Yeah.
So we go to the jail. We say, hey, the lawyers for St. Mary's are saying we can't get your records. They're saying you're at fault.
Right.
For what happened.
And
they're not.
Of course they are.
And he's like, oh, no. I want you to have my records. I want everybody to have them to see what's going on. We get the records. The records show that he had predatory conduct.
Oh, my God.
And that he was a known risk.
Oh, my God.
And so, I don't know how they're going to defend that case.
They can't.
But they hide this stuff, and then they don't take responsibility. It's
almost
horrible.
the same case. Young lady attempted suicide. She gets she's young, 17, gets put into a hospital, right? She is messed up. She ran her car into a building. She's messed up.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. She's in the hospital, has a cath. There's another guy that came from the Wayne County Juvie Detention Center that's not supposed to be out. That's a predator.
Yeah.
Goes to see the girl that he gave STDs to in the hospital.
What?
And he ends up raping my client, right? And the question became, right, of same thing of getting the records of the defendant over here.
Right.
And we ultimately got it. We put it into suit and settled. So it's a confidential settlement. But at the end of the day, you think about that for a moment. The hospital, I always believe this. We're a forgiving society.
We are.
If you are transparent and acknowledge messed up, we'd save so many things.
Oh, my God. And
Right?
yeah, we wouldn't have to be working so hard.
Crazy.
There wouldn't be as many lawyers. People say frivolous lawsuits. What about frivolous defenses? I see them every single day.
Yeah.
So, okay. So where I'm getting the time signal. One last thing. You told me about a case where the jury went to the scene of a crime to pray. Tell us about this case.
This is a wild case. And it takes place, a little bit more to the story, but ultimately I was defending a young man charged with open murder, first-degree murder, second-degree murder. So what happens is we're in the middle of this jury trial, and it happens, I'm south of 8 Mile, so we call, waterfront property a creek. So this kid is drowned in a creek, the decedent, And the decedent was high. He was on psychedelic drugs. He was wasted. And they accused my client of doing this homicide, of strangling him under and killing him underwater. So I'm in the middle of this murder trial, right?
Yeah.
And obviously the jury is not to do anything with regards to any kind of research during the trial.
Judges instruct the jury
all the time.
Don't Google stuff.
Right.
Don't go to the scene.
Right.
Everything.
All of it. So what happens? One of the jurors we come to find out during deliberations, had gone to the scene with his children to pray at the scene. So ultimately, it ended up in a mistrial. During that time, the ancillary story to that was
he praying for like the respite of the soul, or was he praying for God to reveal?
I didn't get
the
into
murder?
the prayer.
Okay.
I wasn't going to go to the content of the prayer.
Yeah, what kind of prayer? Was it Our Father, or what was going on?
I have no clue on what he was praying for,
right.
but he just violated everything with regards to the oath. One of the other jurors told us. We found out about it. It was next thing, mistrial. But if you remember the Widlack case, ultimately the Widlack case, because I used Dan Spitz as my expert. Dan Spitz was the guy that did the autopsy on Mr. Widlack that was found in the St. Clair Lake up a ways.
Where there was a bullet missed in the brain.
Missed in the brain. And, oh, my gosh. So that was the ancillary story. That's for another day.
That's on the next. Todd, thank you so much.
Love you, man.
For coming on. Love
Pleasure
you too, brother.
Pleasure was mine.
It was fun, man. Until next time.
All right.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another amazing episode with my boy Todd Flood of Cases Gone Wild, brought to you by me, Jon Marko. If somebody you know needs legal representation, you need a good white-collar criminal defense attorney, you need anything, go to the website, markolaw.com. We'll hook you up with Todd Flood of Flood Law. Until next time, we'll see you on another Cases Gone Wild.